Times Square are the remnants of ports where large machines would come in and indigenous people would trade with indigenous people. We exist here because of the work that they did. And so it is a great honor to be here tonight as we celebrate the anniversary of an organization that plays a profound role in indigenous lives around the world. We'll hear more from them soon, but in the meantime, our thanks to SOM for this lovely venue. Our appreciation, Our appreciation to Chen for the beautiful cocktail reception music. And to Pawanka's partner organizations, Health and Harmony, Community First Development, Tamalpais Trust, the Christensen Foundation, Novo Foundation, and the Cultural Conservancy. And now, let's raise the spiritual vibration of this already elevated room and open our hearts for a spiritual ceremony led by Namaka Rollins and Teresa Zapeta, Tom Sargent, and Keenan Tegar.
Ai I kumu kahi kala e puka maila kene e ayala na helu I luna o ka ina. Ke ho'o pumehana nei, ke ho'o mālama lama nei, ke ho'ola nei na kini e. Wa o ka pō e o ka pō I ke ao, e ola kāko a pau I ke ola e.
Thank you, Namaka. Thank you, everyone, to be here. We want to invite you to connect with your energy, especially with our ancestors. And today, in the Mayan calendar, is the day of our ancestor. In my language, Ahmak. The meaning is the wisdom, and it's very, very important to recognize all the wisdom, the knowledge they gave us. And can you see in our energetic center, we have two colors, white and yellow. And the white represents the seed, because Pawanka found born 10 years ago and grown, and now we have in a good moment to receive all the new process and the results. For that we offer also the yellow flowers, and we invite you to connect and to recognize all the ancestors' energy, to be here with us today from Africa, Asia, Pacific, Americas. And for that I put my flower and invite our sisters and brothers to put your energy in the center, and to connect and to offer this flower, this element for your ancestors. And thank you, everyone. Welcome.
Ah, Tabutni, thank you, thank you. I was always told by my aunt that for Indigenous people, there was no separation of spirituality, of sciences, of religion. It was a way of life. And so thank you for sharing with us right now a ceremony of such beautiful intention. For any organization to succeed, it needs purposeful, dedicated, and clear-minded guidance. Here are two members of the Pawanka's Fund Guiding Committee to share vision for the future. Please welcome Hussein Adan Isaac and Joan Carling.
Thank you for joining us this evening. We hope you're going to enjoy this beautiful program.
The Pawanka Fund, established a decade ago, has been dedicated to creating a harmonious world guided by ancestral values of indigenous peoples. By empowering indigenous communities and fostering cultural partnerships, our core principles of trust and reciprocity continues to drive our mission.
The Pawanka Fund is led by a guiding committee composed of indigenous leaders from 7 sociocultural regions of the world. With extensive experience in national and global indigenous movements, we guide strategic planning, governance, budgeting, grant making, and resource mobilization through our collective decision making.
Our vision at Pawanka is to support indigenous peoples in maintaining their deep connections to their lands, territories, and resources while enhancing their cultures, knowledge, and sustainable practices. We strive to uphold the dignity, rights, and well-being of all, particularly women, youth, the elderly, and persons with disabilities.
Our organization is committed to strengthening indigenous peoples' self-determined development through strategic grant making that revitalizes indigenous knowledge and practices, promotes our rights and well-being, encourages sustainable investments, and practices in intercultural philanthropy that transforms power dynamics through ancestral values and spiritual connections among all beings.
Our initiatives align with the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, Well-being and Self-Determined Development, Mother Earth, traditional knowledge and intergenerational transmission, cultural practices and spirituality, complementarity between knowledge systems, gender equality, institutional strengthening, alliances, and networking.
We are present in 7 sociocultural regions of the world, reaching over 740 indigenous peoples in 84 countries and counting. We build reliable, strategic partnerships with indigenous organizations supporting their efforts to manage and protect their territories and ecosystems based on traditional knowledge, customary laws, and indigenous governance.
The Pawanka Fund operates as a collaborative platform guided by indigenous guardians' knowledge worldwide. On this special occasion of our 10th anniversary, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to all the generous donors of the Pawanka Fund for your unwavering support. You have empowered indigenous communities, preserved cultural heritage at risk, including indigenous languages, and championed the rights and well-being of countless indigenous peoples.
Without your support and belief in our shared vision, these transformative initiatives would not have been possible. Together, we celebrate a decade of impactful work and look forward to many more years of collaboration, growth, and meaningful change. Thank you.
Good evening.
I'm Mateo Hinojosa, the media director at the Cultural Conservancy, and it is my great pleasure to be here to present the very first sneak peek of a new documentary oral history project, Funding Indigenous, in which the Cultural Conservancy has partnered with Tamil Pious Trust and the Pawanka Fund and many other organizations and indigenous communities to begin to reweave the narrative around what it has meant to be indigenizing philanthropy. And so this project, what you're going to see tonight, is just a tiny little taste that we are sharing with you to celebrate these 10 years of the Pawanka Fund. And we are telling the story in much greater depth. There are 4 15-minute documentaries that are following Dr. Hussein and Ruka Sombolingi, Myrna Cunningham, and Melissa Nelson in their communities, collaborating with indigenous filmmakers from each place, collectively raising our capacity for narrative strategy and telling the history that we are making here today, and that so many have been making over the last decades, of transforming the way that resources flow into and through our communities for the greater good, for Sumak Health. And so it's my great pleasure to present to you Funding Indigenous, this film in celebration of these 10 years of Pawanka Fund.
Indigenous solidarity means connections, strength. Collection of strengths become real strength.
We have a lot of strength. We have a lot of knowledge that can shape and change the rest of the world.
Knowledge, language, music, and dance, ceremonies and celebration bring people together to share their common burden, a common purpose.
Taking those bricks from the colonization and bringing them back into indigenous communities and indigenizing them.
Solidarity cannot come with agenda. It has to be the agenda of indigenous people.
Nós, povos indígenas, vamos ocupar todos os espaços.
Because we believe in self-determination.
Culture was waiting for this raid. Culture is hibernating. And when opportunity comes, it sprouts just like grass of the desert.
There is diverse capacity of indigenous peoples, of organizations, of NGOs and donors. The capacity of indigenous peoples is to take care of our Mother Earth, to take care of our resources, to make sure that we survive as humankind, especially during this difficult climate crisis.
We're coming into this time now. There's so much more real action happening, and land really is coming back. Indigenous rights are being respected. Huge progress.
We weave together as communities so that we learn from each other and share with each other.
Tomorrow at 2 p.m. we will be screening 3 of the 15-minute documentaries at the Urban Indigenous Collective right by the Times Square area, and there will be 8 long-form oral histories coming out very soon, so look out for it.
So it is so beautiful to be able to see all of the attention Indigenous communities are now receiving, but the reality is that so often the progress Indigenous communities make come down to the work of a handful of people. Our next guest has surpassed the triple threat. She is an actress, activist, author, goodwill ambassador for the rights of Indigenous people of the Americas for Organization of American States, and founder of the Wayutaya Foundation. I'm pretty sure that makes you like a quintuple threat. And so please give a warm welcome to special guest, Patricia Velasquez.
I had a script and I'm not using it anymore because the minute I walked through the door, I felt like I was at home. Thank you so much for inviting me. It is, I can't tell you how honored I am to be here. I feel like I've come home. And you start with an idea that is so close to your heart. It's your cause. It doesn't let you sleep. And then you go to your friends, your community, your brothers, your sisters, and you start an organization like Pawanka. And then you start creating programs. And then you have to become accountable. You have to raise funds. And then it's just a full cycle. And then you have to do it all over again. And as we know, it gets very challenging. Very challenging. And I want to not only congratulate Pawanka, but I want to congratulate you. In my community, we call them alihunas, those of you who are not Indigenous. I don't actually think there are not Indigenous in the world anymore, but because in order for Pawanka to be able to help so many communities around the world, they would have to create also a community of partners that support each other and a community of friends. And you are that community. You have chosen to support Pawanka, and that means so much because you're doing it from your heart. You're doing by helping people that you might never meet. And that says a lot about you. I am a Wayu Indigenous person. There are 3 of us here. And the Wayu is a matriarchal community that sits right on the border between Venezuela and Colombia. It's about anywhere 500,000 people, a little less. And when we started the foundation over 20 years ago, 1 child was dying a day of malnutrition. And we started with a little preschool, just like Pawanka started. And for 30 children, because this will guarantee that the kids will have 2 meals a day. Well, that grew, and we have now served over 1 million people, including alihunas, not indigenous. But our focus has to be in creating regenerative programs that can help us achieve our sustainability. And that is also what Pawanka is doing. Not only they have created a community of partners that support each other, but also are really helping these communities, especially women, to become economic independent. Now, we are so many Indigenous people in this room right now, and one thing that we can all say that we agree is that sustainability is embedded in Indigenous communities worldwide. It's what we do. We take from the land what we need and we give back what we always give back. Sometimes I feel that our wisdom is overlooked. We tend to be marginalized. We are seen as insignificant people. But in reality, cultures rise and fall, and Indigenous communities have managed to remain. We hold the key of the preservation of the planet. So by you helping us, helping Pawanka, you're holding that key in your hand. You're supporting all of us. You're supporting your loved ones. you are really truly supporting the preservation of this planet. So continue to do the work. You have a bigger group, we gotta make it even bigger, and we are in awe of the work that Pawanka is doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, it is so refreshing to be in a room full of strong, intention-filled people creating a strong and beautiful vibe. Oh, I am really grateful for this blessing. It is my honor to welcome the former President of the United Nations General Assembly, Her Excellency Maria Fernanda Espinosa.
Thank you. As you can see, I'm shorter, so the mic has to come down a little bit. Buenas noches a todas y a todos. I was asked to speak in English, and therefore I need to read it because I can not, share my emotions in a foreign language, and you're experts in knowing what it means to speak foreign languages all the time. So good evening, everyone, and I would start by saying, by saying greetings to the distinguished members of the Pawanka guiding community. It is a profound honor to join you today in celebrating this remarkable milestone. I forgot to say that when my title was read, I was introduced as former president of the UN General Assembly, and they forgot, to say, the most important title I have. I'm a goodwill ambassador of FILAC, the fund, the Indigenous Fund for Latin America and the Caribbean. That's for me the most important title that I have. And I really want to begin by extending a special greeting to my dear friend, Mama Mirna Cunningham, whose leadership and vision have brought us all here today. Mirna, your dedication to advancing Indigenous people's rights, dignity, and well-being is extraordinary. I've seen you, I followed you for the last 25 years. And I want to sincerely congratulate you on this achievement. You have set an example of the power of Indigenous-led leadership and wisdom to revitalize Indigenous lifeways. In my past life, before politics and before anything else, I was known and recognized as a poet and as someone deeply connected to the Amazon through my work as an academic working on Indigenous rights with Indigenous peoples. That's why any innovative idea or achievement that helps advance the Indigenous people's agenda and rights resonates deeply with me. I feel it as my own. My career has been centered around nature stewardship and Indigenous rights. I understand firsthand the life-changing significance of initiatives like Pawanka. The vision of Pawanka Fund reflects the deep-rooted strength of Indigenous-led solutions to global challenges. As we gather today, it is essential to recognize the significance of the Pawanka Fund as a beacon of innovation and hope. In 2014, there was this light that came out during one of the most important milestones in the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Agenda, the UN World Conference on the Indigenous Peoples. Pawanka has been a bold response to the challenge of implementing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the outcomes of that very conference. It emerged in response to the global need for more robust actions to address needs and challenges of Indigenous peoples. The fund has since become an instrument for promoting and ensuring effectiveness in addressing these issues. Its creation was not only timely, but visionary, anticipating the very challenges we face today. How to mobilize resources effectively and fairly, particularly for those who have historically been marginalized. I am convinced that the 10 years of experience and the road we took have positioned Pawanka to scale up and achieve even greater impact. This means reaching out to all those who are willing to invest in an initiative that is not only innovative, but also more relevant than ever in providing solutions to our broken world, not only for indigenous peoples, but for the whole world. Pawanka is uniquely equipped to lead the way in addressing the complex challenges facing indigenous peoples. Now is the time to seek new partnerships and expand our reach to continue advancing sustainable transformative change for indigenous peoples, by indigenous peoples, for the world. Pawanka has done more than raise the bar. It has redefined what it means to mobilize resources with indigenous peoples at the heart of decision making. It has shifted from a donor-oriented approach to one driven by the needs and leadership of the beneficiaries themselves, or rather, instead of talking about beneficiaries, I would say the agents of transformation. Today, we find ourselves in a world much different from the one in which Pawanka was founded. We are now a global family of more than 8.2 billion people. Enormous transformations have happened in just a decade. From the rise of artificial intelligence to the emerging of a growing multipolar world where priorities have shifted and new powers, state groupings, individual states, and even non-state actors are struggling to find their place in a rapidly evolving international community. While we are witnessing remarkable advancements in medicine, science, agriculture, artificial intelligence, and digital inclusion, we are also confronting escalating global challenges: the climate crisis, extinction, pollution, wars, mass displacement, and deepening inequalities. These interconnected crises have grown in both complexity and scale, demanding solutions that are equally multifaceted and innovative. The world Pawanka engages with today is vastly different, and the work you do is more critical than ever as we navigate this new global landscape. These multiple crises disproportionately affect the disenfranchised and the poor, with indigenous peoples continue to be among the most impacted. Today, more than 700 million people still live in extreme poverty, while approximately 3.6 billion reside in vulnerable areas that are severely affected by climate change. Further, of course, fueling migration, displacement, and shortage of rights. This confluence of crises weakens economies, ignites conflicts, and causes shortages in essential resources such as food, energy, and water. As a result, disenchantment with global institutions, including our United Nations, continue to grow. But these are human-made crises, and they demand human-made solutions. And you, Pawanka, from the global civil society, from the indigenous peoples movement, are called to play in providing those solutions. As the world evolves, so too must Pawanka's strategies and reach. Let me jump a little bit here. Okay, to here. And as you continue to plan for the future, do so with creativity and accuracy, with the power and strength, with rigor and imagination. The task is not easy, far from it, but Pawanka's role is more important now than ever. You are not just funders, you are architects of a new era of cooperation where indigenous peoples are not merely participants, but leaders. We live in a world where cultures blend and collide, yet Pawanka has provided a model of how indigenous cultures can thrive while shaping the global agenda. Mirna, as you continue to lead Pawanka, please know that I stand beside you. I believe in the transformative power of this fund, and I know that the next 10 years will see Pawanka continue to grow, strengthen, and lead the way for indigenous peoples everywhere. Together we will rise. Together we will ensure that Pawanka remains a model of indigenous leadership, of cooperation and empowerment for many years to come. And we know that the Western world has a lot to learn from you. If you allow me, I would like to close with a poem I wrote, which is part of a book called Jungle Tattoo. And of course, I will read it in Spanish, so forgive me for that. The poem is called Amazonas. En el siglo XVI, un cronista pintó a las Amazonas, mujeres devoradoras de hombres que reinaban en la selva. ¿Quién como ellas, desnudas y soberanas, posan con las cabezas y los restos masculinos a sus pies, sonrientes después del festín? Mantis de pechos grandes, pero en actitud mística, porque no se puede iniciar un rito sin rezar, hay que pedir permiso. No se puede comer sin rezar, no se puede rezar sin motivo. El motivo es pedir a los dioses que al dejar las pieles y los huesos de los hombres en el bosque, ellos viajen al mundo de los espíritus y se conviertan en guacamayos. Los hijos nacen después del amor de las amazonas con los pájaros. Thank you and congratulations again.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your work as the Goodwill Ambassador. Had me forgetting parts of Her Excellency's resume. Oh, goodness. All the way from Ewan County, Australia. Please join me in welcoming Aboriginal dancers Natasha Brunhuber, Brian Brunhuber, and Dakota Ferrer.
Hello everyone, Walawani Nindiwan, Naiga, Natasha Brunhuber, Jiringan, Jwabanja Yuan. I am safe journeys to everyone who came here from other lands, from your own countries, and your home, your spiritual place of being. My name is Natasha Brunhuber. I'm a Jiringan, Jwabanja Yuan woman from the southeast coast of Australia. Today we are going to gift you two dances from our country, and our first dance is Umbara, which is our totem dance, the Black Duck. And this dance embodies our totem, who we are, our connection to country, our connection to each other, self, and our ancestors. We will be dancing as black ducks, and this showcases our being, our doing, and our protection of country. Thank you.
Thank you. Can everyone say Umbra?
Umbra.
Umbra is the name of our black duck, our totem. I grew up my whole life on Yuin country, grew up with these two, but I grew up off country, and I'm a Bunjalung and Gumbengra man. And I'll be singing and introducing this next dance. It is a sharing dance, so we will be inviting people up to participate, so you can take this memory home with you. So we will need a balance of those identifying with masculine energy and those with feminine. Anyone interested to come up, and you can do this from your seat as well. So go on then. There we go, Simone. I'll send them out to come get you. Beautiful. Beautiful. So this is a Fisher person dance. So it's about that sustainability Auntie was talking about. Tash is demonstrating the women's movement, so the net, and then reality. And now Brian will demonstrate it, the spear, looking, and strut. So it's about looking, picking up the messages, working together, being out on country. So this is our Fisher person dance. Give me a clap.
Alrighty, our next speaker is a philanthropist who is committed to the progress and preservation of Indigenous peoples. In 2012, he and his wife Barbara co-founded the Tamalpais Trust. He has partnered with Pawanka since its inception and is Pawanka's fund Goodwill Ambassador. Please welcome Tom Sargent.
That was a tough act to follow, I have to say. Yes. Well, it truly is a homecoming. I feel it, and I hope that you all do too. I have to read because there's somebody back there with a stopwatch that's going to shut me off if I do what I normally would do, which is just go off on stories. So, welcome, and I'm so glad that you're all here. My role here is just to tell a little history. 10 years ago, some of us in this room were here in New York for the first meeting of a new fund that was called the Indigenous Ways of Knowing and Learning Initiative. The initiative was formed out of recognition that so many Native and Indigenous languages, cultural ways, and knowledge systems were rapidly disappearing with the loss of last generation elders and by the devastation of land through commercial exploitation. At the same time, we recognized that there were signs throughout the world that Indigenous youth were increasingly interested in learning their ancestral language and cultural ways. The transfer of traditional language and knowledge to this new generation appeared urgent and really needed support. Leaders of several Indigenous organizations, many of whom we've already talked, came to New York to meet and form the guiding committee for this new global initiative. I am guessing they weren't quite sure what they were getting themselves into, nor do I think that any of them really thought they were going to be here 10 years from now. So, I remain as deeply honored to be in their presence today as I was 10 years ago. And I am in awe of what they have, individually and collectively accomplished over these decades of commitment to local and international Indigenous organizations and how they have worked together to build a new model of intercultural philanthropy. So before going any further, I just want to really take this chance, and I hope we get others, to honor Myrna Cunningham. We launched and was truly held the vision of this fund through all sorts of challenges and actually many wonderful surprises, which I think we could all talk about forever. And to also honor the guiding committee members, whom I'm sure you've heard some from them right now, and I think that maybe they should stand up. I don't know. I'm going to keep going with the stopwatch behind me. I was at the first meeting, so I want to tell you a little bit about it, because it was part of the origin story of the fund. I was there as the trustee of Tamalpais Trust, as mentioned, and we were there with John Evans, who was our executive director, and she worked closely with Myrna Cunningham on this idea that actually formed in what was the Kalacha festivals in northern Kenya, which you saw many pictures of on the screen. And that was really the seed of the idea, was at the Kalacha festival. The trust that we created a few years before Pawanka was created was really designed to promote and serve traditional indigenous cultures, values, knowledge, life ways, according to the needs set forth by indigenous people themselves. The trust was focused on indigenous-led organizations because we had learned over time that people with lived experience should be the ones to decide how to direct and to support their communities. We initially joined with Christensen Fund and Novo Foundation to support Myrna in bringing the group together, and we made long-term funding commitments in 2014 and still continue to fund Pawanka today. At that first meeting, the first act of the group was to create 2 concentric circles. This would not be so unusual today, but at that time it was, and only the guiding committee sat in the center circle and the foundation folks were put on the outside. And this was really a way of decentering the usual power dynamic of philanthropy. And that was a really important step to see happen. What unfolded over the day was a new way of collectively doing grant making. The Foundation for an Intercultural Philanthropy grounded in relationship, trust, mentorship, reciprocity, and respect for traditional ways of knowing and learning. In that circle, they were crafting a very different way to do philanthropy. Interestingly, there was little discussion of money. There was no discussion of metrics and need to scale up. No immediate concern for strategic plans or methods of evaluation. The discussions were around the importance of intergenerational transfers of knowledge, the need for mentoring new leaders, diverse approaches to language revitalization, stewardship of lands and sacred sites, and many other topics that became the cyclical themes of what grew to be the Pawanka Fund. Simply put, the basic concepts of Pawanka rose out of mutual agreements between the people in that circle and remain the foundation for this today. From the perspective of a funder, I believe it is highly effective to support indigenous-led organizations because so many of our concerns and issues intersect at the ground level where indigenous people live. Whether you are interested in climate initiatives, forest conservation, biodiversity, human rights, and many others, it is important to support indigenous communities to help them thrive and do what they naturally do, and this is very important, in accordance with their cultural beliefs, not with what we, the dominant culture, want to put on them to save us. There are thousands of unique cultures in this world with distinctly specific languages and knowledge located in indigenous communities. These communities have been extraordinarily resilient in the face of unbelievable exploitation and abuse for centuries. Cultural and biological diversity go hand in hand, and indigenous people are at the heart of the healing of this world needs because connection and relationship is fundamental to their way of being. Indigenous-led organizations are the vehicles for this healing, but they need resources to be able to steward land, animate intergenerational knowledge and language exchange, advocate for their rights, and live as they wish, practicing their traditional cultural ways as well as engaging in however they choose to participate in the dominant culture. While tonight is a celebration, because I have a little bit of a role here, it is also a chance to give to Pawanka Fund. And I hope that all of us in a position to do so will support this organization to an exceptional example of intercultural philanthropy to grow into the future. Thank you.
Hello. I'm not taking my time to allow them to set up chairs or anything. So the next portion of the evening, we are going to switch it up and we are going to do a speed round where 4 super smart people responding to one question asked by an extremely mindful moderator. Please welcome Eduardo, Denisa, Stanley, and Kynan in conversation with Melissa, who will also provide the last names that I did not want to butcher. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'm just so happy to see you all here today. Bujun Dinoi Maganatug, I greet you all as relatives in my Anishinaabe language. I am Turtle Mountain Anishinaabe, and I am so proud and honored to serve on the guiding committee of the Pawanka Fund over the last decade, funding in Turtle Island, North America. And I'm so honored to be here today with 4 extraordinary leaders, Indigenous leaders, from 4 of our 7 sociocultural regions around the world. And these leaders represent many, many different organizations and movements. And I'll read their bios now, and then I will share a question that they will all respond to. And Eduardo is our one member who is Spanish speaking, so we will be doing some translation with him. So thank you for your patience. I don't want to butcher their names either. All right. So first off, we are so happy to have Manuel Eduardo Peralta here, representing Latin America. He has demonstrated a strong commitment as an Indigenous leader and to Indigenous people's rights through prestigious scholarships and active participation in Indigenous people's movements and youth movements throughout Latin America. He has been empowering them in global forums, including the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. He works with the Latin American and Caribbean Indigenous Youth Network, or REDLAC. They were founded in 2010, and they unite Indigenous youth from 10 countries to promote unity, strengthen decision-making processes, and to advocate for fundamental human rights and support the formulation of the first health plan for Indigenous youth in collaboration with the Pan-American Health Organizations. Welcome, Eduardo. So happy to have you here. Next, from Africa, we are so happy to have Kimaran Ola Riamit. He is joining us from Kenya. He is a leader from his Maasai community in Kenya and founder and director of Indigenous Livelihoods Enhancements Partnership. He represents and advocates for Indigenous rights in key environmental governance and sustainable development. His organization, a grantee partner like all of them of Pawanka Fund, ILEPA, is rooted in the Majimoto Group Ranch land rights struggle in Narok, South Kenya. They promote healthy lifestyles and sustainable development for Indigenous peoples through human rights and environmental programs. They were recently awarded the UN Development Program's Equator Prize 2024 for their biodiversity and cultural heritage preservation efforts. Join me in acknowledging and welcoming and congratulating you. Next, we have an extraordinary youth leader and visionary filmmaker. If you had a chance to see the Wayfinders film, Keenan Tigar is a 19-year-old photographer and filmmaker from the Dayak Iban tribe in Borneo, Indonesia. He captures the daily lives and wisdom of his community while advocating for Indigenous rights and environmental balance throughout his work. The Sungai Utik community of the Dayak Iban people in West Kalimantan, Indonesia, exemplifies sustainable resource development and cultural preservation through their collective practices and protection of a 9,504 hectare customary forest, earning recognition such as the Kalpataru Award and the UN Development Program's Equator Prize for their environmental conservation work. Congratulations, thank you. Such rock stars, so amazing. And last but not least is my dear wonderful sister, Denisa Livingston. Denisa is an Ashoka Fellow, an Indigenous public health consultant, advocate, and leader focused on food justice in the Desert Southwest, the nation, and the world. She is currently a Tribal Data Champion Fellow at the University of New Mexico with a background in leadership roles at Slow Food International and over a decade of advocacy for Indigenous communities globally. I could go on and on about Denisa. We've served in the food justice trenches for a long time together. It's so great to have you here. And she leads Dene Community Advocacy Alliance, DCAA. They were formed in March 2012 as a grassroots organization of intergenerational health advocates dedicated to raising awareness and mobilizing efforts to combat chronic health issues and promote sustainable food systems and public health interventions. Please, again, welcome and acknowledge these incredible grassroots leaders from around the world. And in our limited time, I want to ask you one question, even though I would love to talk with you all day. And that first question is, with the Pawanka Fund support, how has it enabled you, your community, and your organization to implement your vision for Indigenous rights? And we will start with Eduardo, please.
Ali, Tuta, muy buenas noches con todos. Mi visión ha sido colectivo. Como miembro de la Red de Jóvenes Indígenas de América Latina y el Caribe, comparto con todos los pueblos indígenas construir un futuro próspero con identidad, con los conocimientos ancestrales, con la ciencia de los pueblos indígenas. Eso es lo que nosotros hemos tenido y hemos trabajado también liderando proyectos de cambio climático. Además de ello, puedo decir gracias al Fondo Pawanka por el apoyo financiero, que gracias a ello hemos liderado 31 proyectos llamados Colomno Capañán, donde busca la revitalización de las lenguas indígenas, donde busca la revitalización de los conocimientos ancestrales, capacidades, desarrollo de capacidades, igual liderando los desafíos climáticos que existen en nuestros territorios. Además de ello, puedo decir que hemos logrado nosotros también fortalecer en la organización nuestras capacidades de iniciar proyectos, monitoreo de proyectos, así para fortalecer y replicar en los territorios para los jóvenes, mujeres, jóvenes, niños, indígenas. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. Thank you so much, Eduardo. And you can pass the mic to, yeah, please.
Good evening, everyone. As has been said, my name is Kimareni, I'm an area mate. And I feel overwhelmed by the energy in this room, so I don't know where to start or end, but I'll try. So as has been said, ILEPA, which I work for, is an organization working with the Maasai in southern Kenya. And we were particularly attracted by three elements, particular principles of the Pawanka Fund. One is, in a world where indigenous knowledge is demeaned and devalued, it stepped out and stated in black and white that it is committed to indigenous ways of knowing and doing. So that was very, very attractive for us. The second is that in doing that, It is committed, its funding is embedded in self-determination of indigenous people. In that way of knowing, it's going to be self-determined by them. And the third is that it is committed, it's locked these resources for indigenous people. And so we were privileged to connect to Pawanka. And we did a number of things in the few years we've worked with them. Number one, we documented the indigenous justice system of the Maasai. We documented the principles of conflict resolution and peace building among the Maasai. The indigenous justice system was between the Maasai of Kenya and Tanzania, who have been split by the colonial forces by an official line, brothers and sisters in these two countries. And we have also documented the indigenous medicinal plants of the Maasai. And essentially what this has done, among many other works we have done, is that first, it has built solidarity and reawakened our brotherhood across the border between our brothers in Tanzania. Second is that it has triggered the pride and revitalized our value systems in the indigenous justice system of the Maasai. And through that, we've managed to connect with the state judicial administrative system to actually establish an office of alternate dispute resolution based on the indigenous justice system of the Maasai. And we have also managed to create this evidence-based lobbying and advocacy. These documents are available intergenerationally for our youth. So we have facilitated intergenerational dialogue between our elders and the next generation. In short, because time does not allow me to elaborate further, Ilepa is just one pebble in this beautiful symphony story, transformational story of the Pawanka Fund. And to crown it all, recently, as has been mentioned, Ilepa was awarded the Equator Prize, partly because of this documentation of indigenous knowledge and how it relates to conservation, peace building, and conflict resolution. I'm very proud to be associated with the Pawanka Fund. Thank you.
Growing up, I felt disconnected from my roots. I lived near my community, but I didn't know what it really means to be part of it. That's something that a lot of my peers feel, and I don't think that is something that's unfamiliar to the people in this room, that feeling, being disconnected from your roots. The cause of which is outside of this conversation, but what I want to highlight is the vision that our elders had, what they wanted. They wanted their years, their next generations to reconnect with that, to know what it means to be who they are. For me, what it means to be an Iban. Our elders wanted us to know what that is like. They wanted us to play the drums. They wanted us to venture into the forest, to play in the river that's clear, the forest that's bountiful. That's the vision that they have for the world. And that's, for now, temporarily, ephemerally, is something that we've been able to create thanks to the help of Pawanka. One of the many programs that they've supported in my community is making a customary school, continuing that work, facilitating a space where the kids, the elders can interact, can continue to do the practices really that they've done for decades, centuries, but to do so in a way that's focused on cultivating that culture of showing what it means to be an Iban. Thank you.
Everyone, greetings from my Diné language. I just like to thank everyone for your presence and Dr. Nelson for leading us in this panel, but also the connections that we've helped to create with Dr. Cunningham and the rest of my colleagues here, but through Pawanka Fund, the vision that was carried forward for us to be able to establish what we need to in our communities. For my work, we led the charge against unhealthy food, something called junk food that we may be familiar with. I was told that there's not such thing as junk food, there's junk and there's food. And this is something that we also did not have in our indigenous languages. So we led the charge about a decade ago to this day to still be stewarding the US's only unhealthy foods tax. We've raised over $12 million. We're still waiting for the funding to come through from the pandemic to see what the revenues look like. But we funded over 1,000 community wellness projects, and that has been our foundation of our work to be able to see what indigenous public health systems look like when we create these policies, and it hasn't been easy. But with Pawanka supporting us, we've been able to focus on really 3 key pillars: leadership and healing, community engagement, and also indigenous food sovereignty. And so when we talk about Iyanbijol, which is the word of unhealthy food in my language, it's something that we're up against, each and every one of us. And indigenous folks, we have the solutions, we have the answers that have been waiting in our seeds. Seed sovereignty, data governance, indigenous lifeways, and also our knowledge system. It all depends for our future. It depends on the solutions, on what we're carrying, not only in our heart, but also in our spirit, in our prayers, in our ceremonies, our songs, and our poems, and also this fellowship that we have together. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. We have an international campaign that Pawanka supports called Let's Eat In, Let's Eat Indigenous, Get Dirty in the Kitchen, and Address the CRAP, the CRAP, Carbonated Refined Artificial Processed Foods, and to be able to cook in the kitchen together and to eat more indigenous foods. I want to close with a prayer, and my prayer in the years ahead and generations ahead is centered on what we say in Diné. And in Diné, there's a word, sihasin. Sihasin, meaning having an exception of goodness and anticipation of strength and capacity, assurance of positivity and growth, and it also means reflection. It will be a reflection of intergenerational responsibility and investment. Sihasin means hope. As I think of you all and our ways forward, I pray you hold one another in your hearts until we see and be with one another again. As I think of our days here, I share this poem I wrote standing at the river, praying. I hope this blesses you too. The poem is called Sihasin. Liberation and restoration surround us, refreshing like the cool breeze on a warm day, like the power of flowing brisk water of our sacred rivers. Our hearts beat with the realities of suffering and pain all around us, like the snow that waits to melt into the river, like the rocks that wait to be greeted by the spring. We wait for healing. Like the air circulating freely, roaming freely in abundance, we pray for freedom and increased overflow of hope, joy, love, and peace. Like the tall willows along the riverbank, we wait for our turn to be refreshed. Like the moment we wait to feel the warmth of the sun on our skin at dawn, we wait another day, another night to be healed. Trauma lingers with unpredictability like the disruption in our gardens and fields from climate change. We wait like our crops to be rescued by the rain, waiting, dry, and roasted. Like hills and mountains wait for company, so do the pillars of our families, our elders and vulnerable, waiting. Listen. To the birds who greet us from dawn to dusk, we are still here. The moon and stars shine brightly, blessing us with existence and wonder, but there's still a long line for healing. While we wait, we express our gratitude for the air. We honor the aspiration in our lungs. We pray for this moment, this breath. As we pause, We see, hear, smell, and feel our blessings that still surround us today. We are reminded we are still able to breathe. Healing is on the way. Ahead.
Thank you. Chimiquich. All right. I think we're getting the boot, right? Okay. Onward.
One of the beautiful messages that you hear throughout Indigenous communities, and this presentation was no exemption. We are still here. We are still here. And it is so beautiful to see the fight and the resilience and the effort and energy and love that people are putting into the work that they are doing today. This world is small, and Indian country is even smaller, and I have had the privilege of knowing a number of presenters this evening, and the next presenter is one of those people. She is an incredibly talented artist. During the day, he knew Josephine Tarrant serves as the managing director of Safe Harbors, New York City's Reflections of Native Voices Festival. But she is also an accomplished, critically acclaimed singer and songwriter who performs under the stage name Miss Josephine. And if you don't know, now you know. Please welcome Miss Josephine.
Yes, thank you. All but 5'2". Thank you for that introduction, Andrina. Yes, I'm very lucky to know Andrina very well, to have performed with her and worked with her on a lot of very broad and creative capacities. So I'm very grateful for that and all the creatives I get to be with. Good evening. As Andrina said, my name is Miss Josephine. I am a native New Yorker, for real. I'm from Jersey City, but I'm also from New York City. And I'm a lifetime community member here. I've done a lot of work in this community. I'm a recovering actress, so I've done a lot of work as far as theater in the city. And yeah, I'm gonna be sharing some songs with you guys tonight. Excuse my water, I'm just trying to stay hydrated. I'm gonna be sharing some songs with you guys tonight that I've recently released. This first song I'm gonna share with you guys is really about grief. I think oftentimes as Indigenous people, like, hate to play into the stereotypes, but we're dealing with a lot of grief a lot of times. And I think grief is a really broad term. I think it's really not just somebody passing away, although of course it is that. It also is life-changing, right? Having a child, moving from some place to another place, ending a relationship, and of course burying people. So this first song I wrote was basically about my grief after my father passed away. He passed away from COVID-19 in 2020. And this was something I wrote really just because I needed that reminder, and I think a lot of other people need that reminder who are grieving in the many different ways that people are grieving, that the sun does come up tomorrow, right? And we always have the next day. And so, you know, part of me putting these songs out is, you know, being an actress and coming from that background, you think, well, why am I gonna change? Why am I gonna do these things? And a big push for me to release this music was because I felt people need to hear this. And I really, really wanted people to find some solace or find some companionship or find some healing in some of my music. So this first song I'm gonna share, let me get a sip of water before I say it. This first song I'm gonna share is Don't Miss the Sunshine. Ooh. on the strength of her fathers. But life keeps moving on. Gotta miss the extra 5 minutes to catch the rising dawn. But don't miss the sunshine, thinking you got left behind. Most of the world is blind to the darkness we feel inside. 'Cause we know that love hurts and it burns like a bee sting. Bob wasn't lying when he said life goes on. To love is to be heard, so choose wisely. All heard it doesn't warn. One day you may wake up and see they're gone. There's nothing wrong, that's life is all. But don't miss the sunshine, thinking you got left behind. Most of the world is blind to the darkness we feel inside. 'Cause we know that love hurts and it burns like a bee sting. But see, like honey, love can be bought with money. And those who don't have it know they want it and they want it bad. Heartbreak is the burden of being human, so don't waste your time. Learn to communicate, don't miss the day. Yeah. And don't miss the sunshine, thinking you got left behind. Most of the world is blind to the darkness we feel inside. 'Cause we know that love hurts and it burns like a bee sting. And it stings, but it tastes so goddamn sweet. La 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 la. Thank you. Get a little hot in here. Thank you. So, that song has just been released. If you guys want to check me out, I'm on Spotify, iTunes, all that. Miss Josephine, that's ms.josephine. Check me out. You know, I try to do a lot of my music from the only perspective that I understand, right? I'm not a reser. I'm not from the country. I'm a city girl. So I try to do everything from an urban indigenous femme point of view, right? And that really is all I can do. That's what I grew up on. That's with my grandmother, with my mother. I come from 3 generations of city Indians. So, you know, it's we're definitely a particular breed, you know, specifically in New York City, you are a particular person, right? You have multiple identities. So this next song I'm gonna share is something that I just released about 2 weeks ago. And this song I was really happy to put a visual out. I just put a visual out for Don't Miss the Sunshine. But for Red Bull, I got to do a visual. I want to give a shout out to Frankie Peterson, who's Mi'kmaq, also a New York City girl, and she was the director of the video. And of course, my creative director, Jaden Avery Love, who's here. And yeah, it was a really great experience. We got to use all the urban indigenous femmes I could think of, or just urban femmes who are creatives, who are out here trying to make it work, you know. I say that about being a New Yorker on top of having the identity of being an Indian, because being a New Yorker is an identity in itself, and it's a grind, right? And if you are creative, it is tiresome. You know, it's exhausting. And I think as femmes of color or indigenous, right, you're carrying that with you, right? You're carrying what's going on with your family back home. You're carrying your job. You're carrying trying to pay your rent, trying to pay your bills, trying to be creative, trying to have relationships, trying to have a love life. And it really can make you feel like you want to explode. And I think just being, femmes and being those pillars of communities where people depend on you so much, you can feel that weight sometimes. So this next song that I wrote was when I was acting, and I was doing a reading at well, I'm not gonna say it, but I was doing a reading at a particular theater, and it was off-Broadway, and it was a rough one. You know, the contents of the play were really pretty demeaning as far as Native people. And I remember thinking I had already, you know, done technically a Broadway show, and I was thinking, why am I put in this position where I still have to play these parts, right? And this isn't even what I want to do. I want to talk about my point of view. I want to talk about where I'm coming from. And I wrote the song in the park, and this was right before the pandemic, and it was just, I was just reminiscing, like I missed the simpleness of just being able to be as a creative, right? Not having to put on my front, not having to put on my mask to deal with people in a room. And I felt that freedom came from being a music artist. And so this was one of the first songs that I ever fully put together myself. I did the beat, I did the lyrics, I did everything, and I was really, really happy to be able to finally put this vision that I had with Frankie and with everybody to create this visual and this music video, because to me, it's called Red Bull, but to me, it's really about that moment to yourself, taking that beverage to yourself, whether it's a sip of water or a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or a Red Bull or Arizona, right? It's you're taking that to kind of regroup and then, you know, kind of, like my grandmother says, right, have a stiff upper lip and then go deal with it. And a lot of times as urban femmes, that's how we have to do, right? We gotta get ourselves together, have that 5-minute moment to ourselves to have our breakdown and cry, and, you know, get up and get ready to do it again, especially out here in the city. So this next and last song I'm gonna share, put my water down, is called Red Bull. A Red Bull is my sun, shining down on me. Be my serenity, be the energy I need. A Red Bull is my sun, shining down on me. Be my serenity, be the energy I need. Some people in this world are meant to be used. Some people in this world are meant to rule the world. This is my domain, my entity, followed by the patronizing words of my enemies. But you will see, a Red Bull is my sun, shining down on me. Be my serenity, be the energy I need. A Red Bull is my sun, shining down on me. Be my serenity, be the energy I need. A day in the park is all I need. Public schools let out and the kids begin to scream. This is my domain, my universe. Young girls yelling about their man, beautiful brown girls trying to hold hands. Yellow is the theme, we're all known to scheme, but love for community is my eternity. A Red Bull is my sun, shining down on me. Be my serenity, be the energy I need. A Red Bull is my sun, shining down on me. Be my serenity, be the energy I need. Yes, thank you all very much. You know where to find me. I'm on all the socials and everything. And big shout out to Andrina and everyone for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me here tonight. And I'll be in the city. So if you live here, you'll see me around. All right, y'all take care. Have a good night.
And what we use as our jewelry and our first type of currency, the list goes on and on. You see our regal and our royal families from our area that have these beautiful wampum belts. So it was a very, very quick choice what I'm gonna do with this purple color. And to trace my line back, I come in, you see the beadwork, you see the fringe, you see the turquoise, and it's like, you're an Indian, you have to be. Or you see the straight hair, and that's, that's that one-dimensional look and perception of what a Native American Indian person or indigenous person is supposed to be. But I wanted to make sure I worked with indigenous ideas, my hometown ideas, made sure I put the input of indigenous jewelry makers to accent what I had going on with this whole Emmy thing, which I, again, can't even fathom. So I was very proud to have the opportunity to represent, again, us, and have this other perception of what it actually means to be indigenous and what it means to me to be indigenous from where I'm from. The very word indigenous doesn't mean that you are this one-dimensional person. It means that you are from the people of the land, from the ancestors, wherever that land is from. We don't own the land, we are the stewards of the land. We belong to the land. So no matter where I have been blessed with, you give it and you represent who you are. So it's not just to promote myself. I'm not about myself, I'm about we. No matter what stage or what ring or what microphone I have in my hand, it's always or whether I'm at the Emmys, it's always to make sure I have that representation and an opportunity to educate, especially from the area I'm from being from the Northeast. Because, let's face it, this place forgets about our first contact people in the 200 or 300 years that we had to fight off what was in America yet before they went west. So let's just pin that up too. And also being here at the World Trade Center, speaking with you, fine people doing all this amazing work that I'm learning, it's just really amazing for me, so thank you. So congratulations to the Pawanka Fund for 10 years for doing this beautiful, committed, often underrepresented, underrated work and preserving our joy and our love for our culture. Tibetan.
Thank you so much. Next up, Dr. Myrna Cunningham! I've just been practicing and auditioning for my next role as a boxing announcer. Dr. Cunningham is a Musquito from the North Atlantic coast of Nicaragua. She is a leading indigenous authority on women's rights and serves as the chair of the Pawanka Fund's guiding committee. Please welcome Dr. Myrna Cunningham.
Naksa Timia Yamni Al Sutra Lampulatara Marquisna. I greet you in the language of my people, the Musquito people of Nicaragua. I'm so I feel so humbled to be here after listening to everything that have been said. It all started in Calacha with Dr. Hussein, with Tom, with John, with Ken Wilson from the Christensen Fund, and with over 1,000 members of the different tribes in Kenya that had been fighting for years. And they were meeting for the first time to try, through dances, through music, through food, sharing food, to begin to find ways in which they would live in peace. It was a beautiful festival, but it was the seed of Pawanka Fund. I remember sitting down with Tom, and he said, we should continue working on revitalizing traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples. How can we do that? He even, I remember he mentioned that he had a meeting with Vicky Taule, who is also a member of our guiding committee. And he said, Vicky was sitting and there were some mountains behind her beautiful place, Baguio. So after that, we met several times, trying to, I think, on how we would be able to revitalize traditional knowledge systems of indigenous peoples. I remember when John Collins said, Tom and Barbara have agreed to give you the first funds. Oh my God, I was so happy. I was so happy. And we met and we said, okay, we have these funds. We don't know if we will get more. So let's try to stretch the funds. And let's do something at least for the next 3 years. We didn't, as you mentioned, we didn't even think about where we would get more. But we got Novo in the room, we got Ken and the Christensen Fund in the room, and we all started. And our goal was different ways of learning and knowing of indigenous peoples. We were so proud of the knowledge system of our communities, of our people. And we were sure that if that knowledge system would be supported, we would be able to advance towards what our people call self-determined development, buen vivir. And that is what we have been doing during these 10 years. We have grown with more partners. Where is Ivana from Cargill? Casey, Ivana, you're there. Where's Wellspring? Are you still here, Gabby? Gabby was around here. We have some anonymous friends also, but we have been bringing little bit. I remember we had a retreat. Should we do fundraising? Or what should we do? And at some point we decided, let's don't do fundraising. Let's just be good. Do our work good. And then when they see that we do our work good, they will come and join us. That was our first fundraising strategy. I don't know. It worked. But maybe it doesn't work enough to grow so much. But it worked. And that is what we have been doing. Trying to create something different from what philanthropy has done in the past. Some people call it decolonizing philanthropy. We call it indigenous intercultural philanthropy. And it's based on something that each one of us learned. Sharing. In all of our communities, we share. Philanthropy is that. You share. If you have, everybody in the community have. And that is, so what we are trying to say is that we will shift the power dynamic if philanthropists begin to recognize that we have value, we have strength, we have territories, we have knowledge. And what philanthropy, other philanthropists bring into that relation complement what we have already been doing as indigenous peoples. We have been protecting our territories. We have been protecting our resources. We have been protecting biodiversity. And that's what we have been doing. Today, I just have to think, you heard our partners. We have over 1,000 partners that have that type of stories. Beautiful stories. That things that they have been able to accomplish with little resources, but especially with respect, with trust, recognizing that they make the best decisions when they can decide. That is what we have been doing, telling our partners, decide, exercise your right, self-determination. And that is what we have been doing. So today, this is a celebration in their name, the name of the 100 of indigenous peoples that have been supported or accompanied through Pawanka, that are not here today, but they are changing the world. And they are changing the world because we have been able to build partnership with you, with a lot of you here. So intercultural philanthropy means community bring their knowledge, their territories, and you bring resources, you bring technical assistance, and complementing those resources, we are setting the possibility of changing this world and making this world a world in which there can be justice, there can be respect, there can be dignity for all. Of course, I would like to thank a lot of people, a lot. Tom, his family, you have been with us. I always tell Tom, you are a philanthropist that walk the talk. You have handed over the decisions. And we hope that that way of working inspire other philanthropists, that you begin to have confidence in indigenous peoples. Novo, I don't know if Victoria is here from Novo. You're still here. Casey, where are you? Is he here? You're here. So you have been with us the 10 years. And as I said, during this time, some others have joined. But of course, this would not be possible with other partners. The RIO, the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, when we did our first side event, they made a recommendation to governments and to other entities that they should support indigenous-led funds. I usually say that we have inspired a new ecosystem in philanthropy. That's how you work, you speak, and that's indigenous-led funds. Now we see more indigenous-led funds that are growing, and really that is a response to the self-determination recognition. We want to create mechanisms that can really ensure that funds go into the communities. And I think we will see more of that in the future. So we need, that's why we are now advocating for COP30, for a new pledge, because we want more resources to go into the communities. So, because we are now prepared for that. Of course, this would not be possible without our guiding committee. Melissa, Don Brit, Namaka, Joanne. Is Joanne still around? Yeah, where are you? Vicky, that is not here. That guiding committee is now going through. We have evaluated what we have done during these 10 years. And we have agreed that the world still needs Pawanka for more years. And the world still needs Pawanka Fund with its principles and an indigenous-led fund. But as it has been said, this is a different world than when we started 10 years ago. So we're going through a lot of thinking. And of course, applying our values as indigenous peoples, reciprocity, complementarity, intergenerational transfer of knowledge, but also of leadership. These are some of the things that we are discussing for the future. So we really need you to continue supporting. If you have been supporting us, please keep supporting us. If you haven't supported us, this is your chance to really be part of this beautiful partnership that is really changing the world. Come, please, members of the guiding committee, come and stand with me so we can really share the strength. Something that we have learned as guiding committee is that we cannot do these things alone. Of course, you have thousands of years of experience in this group, but we have joined hands with the World Union of Spiritual Practitioners. And here we have Ergen with us. So Ergen, come and join us. Join us. Because the spiritual practitioners of the world has been advising us and advising, especially in one initiative that we have with Niatero, is the Wayfinder Circle. So spirituality is one of the important components of the work that we have been doing. So I really want to thank you for being in this journey together. 10 years. And we hope to see you in our 20th birthday. So you're from now invited for the next 10 years. And when we started, Ruka was the youth, the young one. Now, in every meeting, she said, no, we need younger. I'm old already. So we have Kinan. We have a lot of young people that will follow us. We have partnership with great organizations, Community First Development from Australia. They are here with us. So we are now growing with friends. We have Philak, who has been also partner. So this is a movement of partnership, trust, and love. That is what we have been working on. So thank you very much for being here today. But thank you especially for supporting this work that reach indigenous peoples from all over the world. I'm sure they all appreciate your support. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cunningham. She has a voice that makes me just want to lie on her lap as she pets my head and tells me everything is gonna be okay. So I just wanted to say thank you, Tabutne, everyone, for being here tonight and being such a warm and welcoming audience. And I just want to let you know that afterwards, if you have not collected some dessert from this fine man who is passing them around, we will have more dessert upstairs. But to close out this evening, we are going to have some musical selections from the group Aya Uma, hailing from Ecuador. Let's please give them a warm round of applause.
Dale pues, por favor, sí, señor. Para que te vuelvas socio estratégico nuestro. Y vamos a trabajar en conjunto. Sin duda. Dale, muchas gracias.
No lo tenemos. No lo tenemos Estos me entregaron.
Good night, everybody. Good night. How are you guys going today? Hola, hola a todo el mundo. Muchas gracias. ¿Quiénes son estos muchachos? Muchachos de pelo largo, muchachos de gran corazón, muchachos de pelo largo, muchachos de gran corazón.
Vamos de la derecha.
Decirle a Lale que venga ya, a Lale que ya no está sirviendo.
Ustedes se preguntarán quiénes son estos muchachos. Ustedes se preguntarán quiénes son estos muchachos. Muchachos de pelo largo, muchachos de gran corazón. Muchachos de pelo largo, muchachos de gran corazón.
Ay, ay, ay. Javier.
Javier, ok. El que hizo el video, no fue en el video, ¿no? Pensaba que era
no, por ahí está.
Estos muchachos, ustedes se preguntarán.
No lo veo.
¿Estás viendo monitoreando lo de las cámaras?
Nosotros tenemos estas cámaras, y ahorita ya se cortó la otra, solo estamos con esta, transmitiendo en vivo. Sí, todo. Entonces teníamos 3 cámaras, sino que ahorita ya solo quedamos con esta.
Controlándolo. Qué lindo, me encanta.
Sí. Y poniendo los créditos y demás. ¿Cómo? Sí, sino que la cámara de Ale ya está funcionando. Ahorita empezó a funcionar de nuevo. Claro.
Thank you everyone. This is Ayahuasca. We're coming from Ecuador, South America. We glad to be here and I hope you guys enjoy our music. Thank you.
Ya no. Ya no.
cantaré. El Ecuador, el Ecuador, el Ecuador es mi país. El Ecuador, el Ecuador, el Ecuador es mi país. Conocir, en mi pueblo te conseguí, en la esquina te conquisté, toda la noche te cantaré.
Se arregló por raticos, pero luego el señor, ¡hola! ¿Se había visto?
El Ecuador es mi país.
¡Oh, wow! ¿Esa es la transmisión?
Sí.
¡Está lindo!
Sí, es chévere.
¡Wow! ¡Está increíble!
Ya se acabó, estuvo bien chévere, porque con las dos cámaras, esta ya murió esta cámara.
Ustedes le han puesto eso.
Claro, uno le va colocando acá esto y mire, cuando uno quiere lo desaparece.
Déjame que les tome una foto a ustedes tres. Trabajando.
Vale.
Thank you. Muchísimas gracias.
Primero.
See you next time. Thank you, everybody.
Dale.
We can play every night, but
Gracias.
Uy, muy cool. Qué linda.
thank you. Next time.
Dejémosla ahí con esa mientras.
Sí, no, ya no, claro, ya. Ahí lo que grabe hasta que dé.
And we didn't really get to meet.
Okay. Well, I will be the translator for.
I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to talk, but I've heard about you from Juan.
Dice que lamenta que no tuvo un tiempo para hablar, pero ha escuchado mucho de Juan. Ajá. Entonces que ojalá haya un tiempo para reunirse después.
Sí, con mucho gusto. Estamos para ayudarle y nos gusta, ya tenemos mucha experiencia en este sector de la filantropía, entonces sería genial poderlos ayudar.
It will be really great to have a meeting with you and to tell you how we can help you in anything that you need. We have a lot of experience in this kind of stuff, and it is very nice to see you here.
Lovely. All right, thank you. Go well. Bye.
Okay.
Oh.